French President Emmanuel Macron has threatened Russian leader Vladimir Putin with war. He noted that a war between Europe and Russia is not out of the question. The reason for such a war could be Russia's own actions. Macron said that a proposed European armed force for possible deployment in Ukraine in tandem with an eventual peace deal could respond to a Russian attack if Moscow launched one. French president spoke after talks with Ukraine's president and ahead of a summit in Paris of some 30 nations on Thursday that will discuss the proposed force for Ukraine that Macron suggested could be deployed in important towns and elsewhere. If there was again a generalized aggression against Ukrainian soil, these armies would, in fact, be under attack, and then it's our usual framework of engagement, Macron said. Our soldiers, when they are engaged and deployed, are there to react and respond to the decisions of the commander-in-chief and, if they are in a conflict situation, to respond to it. Macron, together with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, has been driving an effort to build a coalition of nations willing in one way or another to support the deployment of an armed force in Ukraine, with the aim of securing a lasting peace by dissuading Russia from attacking the country again. Macron didn't specify what sort of response he envisaged in the eventuality of a Russian attack. He said the proposed European forces wouldn't be stationed on the front lines in Ukraine, nor be engaged on the first day opposite Russian forces. They would be forces that dissuade the Russians from attacking again. And by holding important towns, strategic bases, mark the clear support from several European governments and allies, he said. So we are not on the front lines, we don't go to fight, but we are there to guarantee a lasting peace. It's a pacifist approach, he said. The only ones who would, at that moment, trigger a conflict, a bellicose situation, would be the Russians if they decided again to launch an aggression. The 27 leaders gathered in Paris, including Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, outgoing German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, agreed they would not soften sanctions until peace was achieved, French President Emmanuel Macron told reporters. He said he hoped Putin would sign up to the ceasefire deal, but if not, that Trump would see through Russia's stalling tactics. President Trump is waiting for a clear answer from the Russians, Macron said. If he has the clear message the Russians are not coming to the table, he will feel deceived, betrayed. And he would have to react.
Poland is preparing for a potential war with Russia by launching adult military training courses that both men and women can join. Politico reports. It is specified that Warsaw currently spends more on defense than other NATO member states, 4.7% of GDP. Poland has the largest army in the EU and spends billions of euros on jets, missiles, tanks, artillery and much more. Now the frontline state, bordering Russia and Belarus, is preparing its population for war. We are neighbours with Russia and its ally, Belarus. We have no buffer zone between us and them. We only have limited time to prepare and respond, said Chief of the General Staff of the Polish Armed Forces, General Wisław Kukula. The publication recalled the words of Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who said that Warsaw plans to increase the number of its armed forces to 500,000 people and train millions of reservists by the end of 2025. He assured that the training would be voluntary. Local authorities are expected to launch short-term military training programs aimed at civilians with no experience. The courses, which will last only a few days, will introduce participants to the basics of civil defense, first aid, and individual military skills. And for those who have already completed military training, refresher courses will be offered. Journalists noted that civilians who want more comprehensive training will be able to enroll in a month-long training program available in both in-person and online formats. According to Kukula, the training will be aimed at giving Poles skills that are useful in both war and peacetime. Financial compensation or tax breaks are being considered as incentives. We want the Polish state to make it clear that we respect those who contribute to our defense. No one will be turned away. Not everyone will become a soldier, at least because of their age, but they will be able to undergo training in civil defense, first aid and crisis response. Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz explained in a comment to Radio Poland. It was also noted that military training for the adult population of Poland is part of the program promoted by the Tusk government. The country is expanding the school program called Education with the Army. According to the plan, physical education classes will include a civil defense component. Such a program will probably be launched in September. If we are ready, and if Russia knows that we are ready, then that will be a significant deterrent. In my opinion, it will be strong enough that Russia will not even start a conflict. Kukula added. Ukrainian troops are advancing deep into Russia's Belgorod region despite Kremlin claims they have repelled the attack. This is a new silent invasion, writes The Telegraph. In western Russia, near the fortified border with Ukraine, the roar of armoured vehicles could be heard as they cleared minefields and barricades. A column of tanks and combat vehicles was making its way through the obstacles, beginning a new phase of combat. It is not yet known whether this is a short raid or a long-term operation. The Institute for the Study of War reports battles in the villages of Demidovka, Prylyesi and Popovka. Ukraine is also carrying out pinpoint strikes on command posts, bridges and warehouses. President Vladimir Zelenski said strategic steps were being taken to counter a possible Russian offensive on Sumy. The advance of Ukrainian troops into Belgorod would likely divert enemy forces from that direction. The Belgorod region borders Ukraine's Sumy, Kharkiv and Luhansk regions and has been used by Russian forces for attacks. The region is also close to Kursk, where fighting continues over high ground that could be important for the negotiations. Unlike Kursk, this time Russian troops were better prepared. Russia appears to have been better prepared for this operation, said John Hardy, Deputy Director of the Russian Program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and this operation is much smaller in scale and in its objectives. He estimates that the Ukrainian forces number less than a battalion, or about 500 soldiers. Discontent with the situation is growing in Moscow. How did this happen? Russian troops completely. They just surrendered. They just left. After that, the enemy occupied it, said Russian war correspondent Vladimir Romanov, commenting on the loss of Demidovka. Elite Ukrainian units and American Bradley fighting vehicles are taking part in the fighting. Pro-Kremlin military blogger Rybar reported on the fighting in Demidovka. The enemy has repeatedly attempted to penetrate our strongholds across the border. The situation remains tense. Another Russian telegram channel, Two Majors, claims that Ukraine is stretching Russian troops along the front, intensifying attacks. The achievements so far are modest, but Ukraine is moving forward and taking a high position, John Hardy noted, adding that it was too early to talk about the impact of the operation on the overall situation on the front. The fact that Ukraine is still attacking after 9 days suggests an attempt to create a buffer zone. Kiev may be trying to strengthen its hand in ceasefire negotiations. It's a risky plan, Hardy said. He noted that Ukraine may not have enough resources. There is also uncertainty about US military aid.